welcome back to the Parent Life Show. We are talking with Debbie Ray Rivers and John Bronson from SCARS, as well as Sheila Cooper from the Coalition of Protection of Children. And our topic is the ultimate taboo, child sexual abuse. Thank you for joining us, Debbie and John. There was a case that was recently brought before the courts where a gentleman was prosecuted for molesting or sexually abusing his adopted daughter. He only got 4 years. John, why do you think that sexual offenders aren't getting harsher punishments?
I think the issue of child sexual abuse has been taboo for so long. It's been one that the community doesn't want to talk about. We sweep it under the carpet. And in particular, because Bermuda is such a small community, there tends to be a sensitivity to the perpetrator. And the real sensitivity should be expressed towards the victim. They're the innocent child, through no fault of their own, have been violated. And I think why there aren't harsher sentences is simply because society has, especially when you talk about the issue of incest, has seen that as something less than what it is. Child sexual abuse is a crime. If you look at the Child Protection Act, it defines incest as a misdemeanor. And so I think this is one of the contributing factors as to why sentences aren't tougher. But this is what I would say to the community at large, and that is sexual abuse is a crime. And the victim, when they are violated, receives a life sentence. When a child is violated, you cannot take that back. And when you try and equate 4 years to a life sentence, you have to ask the question, where is the justice in that?
Definitely. Sheila, do you have anything to add to what John said?
Well, I think he's absolutely right. It's bad enough that we get such short sentences, but when you think about it, such a small portion of the children who are affected by abuse ever actually tell someone. It probably maybe 5 to 10% of them ever tell anyone. So that means of that total population of children who have been affected, very few ever get as far as the court, and then fewer still are convicted. I think we've got a problem among our magistrates at the moment, and maybe some judicial training might help. They're really functioning in the dark ages in respect of their attitudes toward the role of the victim in all of this.
Debbie, how often are sexual predators related to their victim?
I would say sexual predators are related to their victim or know their victim probably 90% of the time. Wow. So 10% are strangers, because there has to be a grooming process that takes place. So they have to take time to know the family, groom the family, and then begin the grooming process on the child.
Oh, wow.
One of the things I would say also, to add more detail to Debbie's point, which she's absolutely correct, is that between 30 to 40% of the time, it's a family member. And 50 to 60% of the time, it's someone we know, love, and trust, and is responsible for the caregiving of children. And that just adds a little bit more detail to the more than 90% of the time, it is somebody that we know, love, and trust.
Now, do you think it makes it harder for families to report it, or for people to come forward to say that, this family member did something like this to me?
Oh, absolutely. I think it's very difficult to have to prosecute a family member or someone that you care about. Our tendency is to protect the perpetrator, because a child certainly doesn't want to be responsible for sending someone to prison. That's a really difficult part of the process. And a family sometimes can ask you not to, that he said he's sorry and expects the forgiveness should stop there. But what we have to remember is, if somebody stole your television or personal possession or a computer out of your home, you would want to prosecute that person and make that person accountable. And so offending a child and committing sexual abuse, there's no difference. It's actually worse. And so we need to start thinking towards that. We're very quick to call the police when someone steals a personal possession, but we're not so quick to call the police when someone steals innocence from a young child.
Yes. Sheila, would you like to add to that?
Well, Debbie's right, and you saw it in the interview that you held at the beginning. so few of them ever tell anyone. And of course, even if you tell someone and it's a family member, very often it doesn't go any further. If it does go further than that, and the individual contacts the Child and Family Services or the police, then it's a question of whether that they even are willing to take it forward. Because in the cases of child prosecutions, there needs to be corroborating evidence. The child has to disclose to the police or to Child and Family Services. In many other jurisdictions, if the child tells the mother or a therapist or a teacher, that individual can testify in court on behalf of the child.
Wow.
It's considered hearsay here, which means that the child herself or himself has to actually tell the police what happened. Well, that's very scary for a child.
And not only tell the police, but tell the lawyers, and then get up on the witness stands, and so that must be even more so.
And that's if it gets to court,
Right.
because very often they just close down when it comes time to tell the police what happened. We have many, many cases like that. So let's say it finally gets to court. Then the child has to, again, tell her story, or his story, in front of the perpetrator. And we gave the court a special screen to put in front of the child, so she or he doesn't have to see the perpetrator, but they rarely use it. There are so many things out there now that would enable the child not to have to even be in the courtroom. They could interview her through Skype.
Right. Yeah.
That's a perfectly good possibility.
Exactly,
And it happens with male offenders who are being charged with cases of murder and so forth as we speak. So the child is testifying in a context that's very difficult. Then she's got to deal with the defense counsel. That's very tough on a child. And the defense counsel can virtually ask her whatever, claim she can't remember properly.
Right.
And so then you've got to question, are you going to even have a conviction after you've put the child through all of that? Now let's say that all goes well and you get a conviction. Then what?
All right.
What are we getting? We are getting sentences that are ridiculous. Oh, supposing we do get a sentence and the perpetrator goes to prison, then what?
Right.
We have no treatment in the prison right now. We have the two major psychologists who actually were responsible for the sex offender program are not there.
Right.
Their positions have not been filled. So we don't have treatment in the prison at the moment. So even if you did get a sentence, you wouldn't be getting any help while you're there.
Right.
So you can see the trajectory. The system is broken down at so many different points along the process that we have a whole lot of work to do in order to fix that.
Now, you've been doing this, with Coalition for over 20 years. Have you seen an increase over the years of child sexual abuse?
Well, we've certainly seen an increase in reporting. And I think that's largely a function of more confidence in the process, a bigger recognition in the public that this is really damaging and that it has to stop. So it's hard to tell whether the actual incidents have increased or whether the awareness has.
Now, you've also been pushing for an offenders list. What would that look like?
Well, that would be a registry of sexual offenders. The provision exists in law for that, but there is no such list. And if there were, the existing legislation does not make that list available to anyone but the minister, and only then by a written request.
Do you think that offenders can be rehabilitated or treated? Visit our YouTube channel, Parent Life. Leave your comment and your opinion. I want to especially thank Fairmont Southampton for allowing us to be able to film here. And we want to thank you as the viewers for watching. This is Parent Life TV, the lifestyle network for parents, brought to you from Bermuda Parent Magazine.